Hi guys, welcome back to another cook along with me, Ben, here at Inoxdine. I hope you enjoyed last week's cookery class with the tacos. This week we're going to be cooking our winter bean and halloumi stew. So again, similar to last week, in your packs you will get a recipe card and an ingredients list with equipment on there as well. So everything you need to make sure you have before we start the class. So you have all your ingredients in there, so just check it off as you're going through. As well, get all your equipment together in one place so that you know that you've got it and you can literally just flow straight from start to finish. So let's just crack straight on with it. I'm going to start by chopping the onion, so we'll get our mise en place ready. So that's all we're going to do with the onion. Just chop it straight in half. We're going to top it, so we're just taking that furry bit off at the end, we're keeping the root on. And all we're going to do with this is we're just going to finely slice it. So once we've peeled it, so onion's peeled. Now we can chop the root off. Both. And all we're going to do now is just going to get it as finely sliced as we possibly can. Take your time here, using that clawed hand again. Getting it nice and fine. Make sure you're using the tips of your fingers to kind of guide the knife. Chop the onion over. That's one part done. Once the onion's done, we're just going to pop it into a bowl. This is where all our mise en place, our prep, is going to go. Straight into the bowl. So guys, once the onion's prepped, we're just going to crack on with the peeling and the dicing of our carrot. So for that, you need a peeler. I'm just going to peel it. Take that skin off. You don't want that in your stew. Once it's peeled, I'm just going to top and tail it. I'm going to chop it in half lengthways, and the same again on the other side. Once it's peeled and chopped in half, we're just going to chop it into diced pieces. So for this, I'm going to do it together. I'm just going to chop it together. So nice chunky pieces, because we don't want it to go to mush when we're cooking it in the stew. So that's the carrot prepped into our onion mix. Next we're going to prep our pepper. Again, with this we're just going to take the chunks off the sides of the pepper, getting as close to those seeds as you possibly can. Chopping the bottom off, that bit can go in a bit. Make sure you've got no seeds in there, because you don't want that in your stew either. Removing the seeds. For this part, we're just going to chop this into slices. Similar process to making a huevos rancheros, it's a Spanish stew. It's traditionally served in breakfast time. So slices like that, just pop them into your onion mix as well. So once you've chopped the pepper, and that's in with your onions and your carrots, just give it a toss up. And next we're going to prep our chilli and our garlic. Because I'm going to use the top of it, probably about that much. I'm going to save that for another day. So all you're going to do with the chilli, chop it in half. Make sure you've got no seeds in there. I've got no seeds in the bottom part of it, which is good. I'm just going to flatten it out. And all I'm going to do here is I'm going to chop it into little dices. So chopping it into lengthways first, and then I'm going to chop it into little cubes, and that's just going to go back into a little pot, ready for our cooking process later. Again, that's just going to flavour it with give it a bit of heat to our stew. Again, on the same, bit of chilli, chop it into lengthways, and then into diced pieces. Top tip here, guys, for when you're chopping chilies, just a little bit of advice: don't ever touch your eyes or your face, because you'll literally be crying for about 10 minutes. So you won't be able to get that stinging pain from your eyes. Next, we're going to chop our garlic. So what we're going to do with that, again, flat, similar to last week. A flat bit of the knife down, push down so you hear a crack. Peel that skin off. Pop that bit into your bin. Same as well. Make sure you've got no bits of skin left on your board. Now what we're going to do with this is take the top off, that nice hard bit where it's usually attached to the bulb. And what we're going to do here is just going to finely chop it. So using your fingers in that claw position, take your time. Nice fine slices of garlic. Pop all that back into your pot. So you guys should all have your onions, your carrots and your peppers all prepped, your garlic and your chilies prepped in a separate bowl, and that's all our mise en place ready for the actual cooking process to start now. So pan's coming up to the heat, coming up nicely on the heat there. Just going to put a generous splash of oil in there. We're going to toast our coriander off, ground coriander, so I'm just going to sprinkle that in. I'm going to toast that off about 30 seconds to a minute, just to get them flavours of that coriander out. Try not to burn them at this stage, because it will leave a nasty bitter taste on your stew. So you just want to lightly toast those. Starting to get that smell of coriander through the kitchen now. Now that's been toasted for 30 seconds to a minute, I'm just going to add our onions, our peppers and carrots into that now. Just giving that a stir up. So what we're doing here, guys, is we're just going to sweat these down until they start to break down and become a little bit softer than they are when they went in the pan. Once they start softening up, we're then going to add our garlic and our chilli. So this probably takes about 2 to 3 minutes to start softening up, medium heat. Once they're softening down, we're just going to add our chilli and our garlic. We're going to cook that for about 30 seconds to a minute, just to start letting some of them flavours out. Now that's been cooking, I'm just going to add our beans. Sweat them down for 2 to 3 minutes. You should be able to start smelling some of that coriander, the garlic, the chilies coming through from all that. All that's going to do now is while it's cooking in there is just infusing the flavours through the beans and obviously breaking them beans open so that the flavours of the stock and the tomato then go into the beans, and obviously that's when you get the flavours for every mouthful that you take later on. Starting to warm through now. We're just going to finally add our tomatoes, chopped tomatoes, and our stock. Just give that a mix round first. High heat again, just getting it back up to temperature so that we can chuck our stock on, then it will start to bring it to the boil. Once it's at the boil, we're just going to drop it down to a low simmer and we're just going to leave it until there's pretty much none of that liquid left in the pan. That's come up to temperature again, so I'm just going to add that stock in there. I've probably got about 200 mils of stock there. Just going to add that in. Bring that to the boil now. Once that's at the boil, we're just going to drop it down to a low simmer and leave it for half an hour, 40 minutes just to cook out. We want them carrots to obviously cook out because we don't want them to be hard when we come to eat it later. Obviously gives time for them beans to get infused with the flavours as well. If you have a lid, you put a lid on and leave that cooking for 30-40 minutes just for the added safety that you're not going to stick to those times and come back to it and it'll be nothing left and it will be a massive burn mess in the bottom of the pan. So just a lid kind of gives you that bit of security. So now I'm at the boil. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop that down to a low temperature and leave it cooking, simmering, just so you can see a little bit of bubbles like that. Obviously because you want some of that moisture to evaporate off. Now that's cooking for 30-40 minutes, we may as well get the rest of our garnish prep. So all we're going to do is just going to get that chopped into chunks, ready to be grilled later on for when that's pretty much ready to serve. We're also going to chop some of our fresh coriander there just into nice rough chunks so that we've got a little bit of garnish on the top and also adding a bit of flavour as well. So I'm just going to chop this into slices. So I'm going to keep my slices quite big, so I'm only going to use 2 slices for the halloumi, for the stew. So you'll have half a halloumi stick each. So what I'm going to do is lengthways, I'll cut it in half. I'm just going to cut it in half again and have 2 nice big chunks like that. So that's just going to go onto my grill tray later for when we come to the serving of our halloumi stew. So now that's ready to the side, we're just going to prep some of our, or chop some of our fresh coriander. So all I'm going to do there is just chop some of that, grab some off. Take some of the stalks out if you don't want that in. You can have a couple in, just none of the big thick chunky ones. So with coriander, it bruises quite easily. So what you want to do is just scrunch it up into a ball and kind of crush it with your fingers to one nice big chunky piece like that. And all we're going to do is run the knife through that once, don't go through it again because it'll go brown really quick. So chop it through it once, get it as finely as you possibly can. And that is just going to be our garnish for the stew, and that's just going to go in the pot for later. And that's pretty much ready to go for when our stew's ready. Right guys, so now my stew has come down nicely here. I'm just going to season it at this point just to make sure that it tastes alright. So nice pinch of salt in there. Let that mix up. Just get a taste before we plate. That tastes good to me. So what I'm going to do now is plate up. So a nice generous scoop of the stew. In the bowl. This recipe will do too, like it says in your recipe card. So you can freeze it or share it with one of your housemates maybe. So I would say that's about one portion. Now I'm going to add the halloumi that's been grilled in the oven. Just finish it off with a nice generous pinch of coriander. And that, guys, is your bean and halloumi stew. I hope you've learned some valuable lessons from today's class, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week. Cheers, guys.